What's going on, guys? Come on in. Make yourselves at home. We're getting ready to start another episode of Jimmy Rants. So if you're new to the show, my name's Jimmy Moore. I do a lot of rants about all kinds of things, mostly in the health realm, and we talk about it here on this show. Sometimes I like to bring you cutting edge stuff like you're going to get today. This is kind of breaking news that's real important if you have type 2 diabetes and you take medication for that type 2 diabetes. The most prescribed diabetes medication in the world has an issue, so I want you to know about it. But go to JimmyRants.com and you can see all the past episodes of this show. We also post them over on YouTube, so definitely type in Jimmy Rants as a keyword search on YouTube. You can find any of the past episodes. But what we like to do here is take a look at what's making news, take a look at like topics of interest in the health realm. And today I've got one that if you have type 2 diabetes, you know someone in your life who has type 2 diabetes and they're taking the drug Metformin, you need to know about what I'm about to share today. So, headline, this was all over the news. Carcinogen found by a U.S. pharmacy in the diabetes drug Metformin. High levels of the probable carcinogen called NDMA has been found in the U.S. supply of the widely used diabetes drug called Metformin, according to testing that's been done by an online pharmacy called Valisure. It's pressing regulators for recalls now. So Metformin is usually the first line of defense if you get type 2 diabetes. Even a lot of people with pre-diabetes tend to be put on Metformin as the first line of defense because it's a great way to control insulin levels in people who have insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, or other like blood sugar and insulin related conditions. So they put you on Metformin, and a whole bunch of people take Metformin. Number one most prescribed diabetes medication, usually the very first one you go on, and it's the fourth biggest selling drug in the entire world. So this ain't chump change, guys. Millions upon millions upon millions of people are taking this medication. And now it's possible that there are high levels of a carcinogen found in it. So let me keep reading from the story. Valishure's testing, so that's the online pharmacy, remember, found that NDMA was found in 16 different batches of metformin that was made by 11 different drug companies, including Anil Pharmaceuticals, Ascend Laboratories, and Actavis Pharma. The highest levels detected were in a batch by Amneal, which had as much as 16 times the acceptable daily limit of NDMA, according to their findings. Often this is the drug they put on people on with diabetes on, and it is the fourth most commonly prescribed drug in the United States. So, a citizen's petition, you guys, has been set up to go to the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, and they asked the regulator to recall and investigate why this NDMA was at this very high amount. So, back in December, the FDA had been getting some complaints from people who said, oh, we found this possible carcinogen in Metformin. And so the FDA conducts an independent investigation, or they're looking at various batches of Metformin from across all kinds of companies, and they found that there was no high levels of this NDMA. So they looked at it in December and found there was a whole lot of nothing. So I don't think this online pharmacy took that too well, so they decided to do it themselves, and they found 16 different ones that they tested had very, very high levels of this carcinogen. Now, the normal level, the acceptable intake, according to this story, is 96 nanograms a day. And the FDA says, oh yeah, all of them were below 96. But then this online pharmacy, Valisure, says, One of them had 16 times that, so about 1,500 nanograms in the metformin they tested. So who do you believe? Who's right? I can tell you this, the FDA does not have a very good track record for things. People don't trust the government as it is. Although I don't know why they would cover up this and allow a carcinogen to be in high amounts. What would be the point of that? Plus it would make it look like the drug caused you to get cancer down the road. Although whoever puts that connection, when you get cancer, oh man, it's just genetic, it's lifestyle factors just involved. And never mind, you might have picked it up from this medication that you were taking for another purpose that was supposed to be doing your body good. And yet, here we have some evidence that shows it could be the drug itself. There were metformin recalls in Singapore last year, in Canada earlier this year. So far, the US has not followed suit. The FDA said it will continue to monitor this and any other drug products and provide any updates on a recall. Again, I don't know what their motivation for not recalling would be. If they get this report from Valisure, I would assume, let's test all those exact same companies and do our own batch testing. Yes, they did it in December, but if they have actual tests where they've run and they show these high amounts, I think they need to come back and reconsider, right? So NDMA, and I'm going to slaughter what this means, N-nitrosodamethylamine. All you pharmaceutical people are just like laughing at me because I just, nitrosodamethylamine. Nitrosodamethylamine. We're going to make a rap song out of that before it's over. Has been found in other drugs, including the blood pressure medication valsartan, the heartburn drug ranitidine, prompting recalls of those products in the past. NDMA can also be found in lower levels in meats, dairy, and vegetables, according to the FDA. Everyone gets exposed to some level of it. The FDA and international scientific community do not expect it to cause harm when it's at lower levels, according to Janet Woodcock, a physician and the director of FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. So when they did their test in December, they're like, yeah, a little bit's not going to hurt you. It's when you get a lot. Well, now we have an online company, pharmaceutical company, that's saying, hey, we found a lot. So what are you going to do now, FDA? It's unclear why Valishure's results differed from the FDA. Valisure said it largely followed the FDA's protocol for testing for NDMA and metformin. All they did is, the exception of changes it said were made to the method to make them more precise. So they basically tried to mimic exactly what the FDA did, except even a finer point on it, okay? David Light, Valishure's founder and chief executive officer, said it's also possible that the FDA got samples that weren't representative of the general drug supply. So when you go to the drugstore, you're going to have, if you get metformin, you're going to have upwards of like 20-something companies all making this drug. And so you're going to have varying companies, varying levels of quality control, okay? So maybe the FDA only did one from one company. Did they do a nice cross-section of a wide variety of companies? That would be interesting to know. Valisure did, and they found some really bad discrepancies, and some doing things worse than others. Depending on the product, NDMA contamination could have occurred due to the manufacturing process, how it is stored, or even aspects of the drug itself. This is a reminder, you guys, of why prescription medications are not the answer to your health woes. I get it. There's some meds that are necessary depending on your particular situation, what you're dealing with. But most people go on a medication like metformin, for example, and they never come off of metformin. And it should ask you the question, do we have this deficiency in a drug where we have to take one for the rest of our lives? Or is it a stopgap measure to get us healed enough and then we implement lifestyle changes that then take over from there? Because think about it, before metformin was around, what did people do who dealt with type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and all the other reasons why they take metformin today. That's right, they had to adjust their lifestyle, they had to adjust their diet. And we know that a well-formulated ketogenic diet is probably going to be as effective, if not more effective, at lowering blood sugar, lowering insulin levels. So maybe you don't have to take the metformin anymore. In fact, most people who go on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet or a real food-based kind of diet, they come off of those medications. And metformin's one of those that you come off of. So why take the chance that there could be a carcinogen in this medication you're trying to take to better your health? Do you want the unexpected consequence of, or unintended consequence of your health being compromised in possibly getting cancer because your diabetes needed to be controlled? How about cutting the carbs? How about doing modalities that will bring your blood sugar and insulin levels under control without a drug? I think that's the biggest lesson in this story I wanted to share here today was we have a way to control those things that this drug is supposed to be using. Now, I remember I was at several conferences a few years ago, and there was big presentations all about metformin for their longevity benefits and some other benefits that go even beyond the insulin and the blood sugar lowering. And so people, oh my gosh, if I'm going to take a drug, that's the one. And I fell into that category, guys. I, at one time, thought, you know what, if I'm going to take a med, that's the one I'm going to take, because there does seem to be all upside and no downside. Well, now we're seeing a possible downside. And this is something to remember too. If you're taking a medication, and there's some really famous ones that are out there, Armour Thyroid, for example. So if you take that for your Hashimoto's or other kind of thyroid issues, Armour Thyroid made a major formulation change about 6 or 7 years ago. And it was working brilliantly, and then suddenly people started getting the new version where they added various fillers, and they started having symptoms again. So don't think when you're prescribed a med that drug just stays the same. They're constantly changing it. They're constantly trying to use cheaper ingredients so that the cost effectiveness of it and the profitability of it are maintained. So just know that, like if you're put on metformin, the version that you're getting today might have NDMA, whereas the one you took 2 years ago didn't. You see what I'm saying? So it's too risky to be a part of the pharmaceutical game, which is why I am vehemently against pharmaceutical drugs. It's a crapshoot. You don't know what you're taking. And so if you don't know what you're putting in your mouth, like food, you want to know what you're putting in your mouth. So why don't we take the same approach when it comes to medications? And of course, doctors scare patients half to death, and they say, oh, if you don't take this medication, your diabetes is going to get worse. Your A1C is going to get worse. You're going to have to amputate your limbs. And you don't want that, do you? So you see how they will manipulate a patient into thinking that they have to take this drug when they don't have to take this drug at all. Very few doctors are offering a lifestyle or nutritional approach to doing the same thing that metformin would do. So we got to get out of this mentality that we have to take drugs, because now we're seeing with this news story today that there's risks involved. Brenda Breland, a professional liability specialist, lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, has been taking metformin for a decade. She takes it because she has insulin resistance. After she learned about the FDA's investigation into metformin late last year, she sent her medication to Valisure for testing. So this is an actual patient who was taking the drug metformin. And she said, you know what, I don't believe the FDA. I want you, Valisure, to take a look at my medication and see if it has this NDMA in high levels. So when she sent it in, she realized it was very high in this NDMA. That's what they found. And so she switched to another brand, still worries though that even the new version is contaminated as well. And it's kind of like that whole once bitten, twice shy. Once you see that there is a carcinogen in one, you're fearful of all of them, which should be a motivating factor. This is the saving grace of this. If people take this to heart and stop taking that med, maybe they get serious for the first time in their life about actually doing something about their type 2 diabetes rather than trying to rely on a medication. Brenda said, I'm not happy with the fact I was taking something I thought was benefiting me, and now I found out that it could have been harmful. So here is the report from Valisure. I know it's overexposed, but there it is. Valisure. There's their report. So very long report, and it's a citizen petition all about metformin, okay? And so they're asking for them to do something. Let me see if there's anything else in here in the petition that I haven't already addressed here. So, yeah, so they did a side-by-side comparison of what the FDA found in December and what Valisure found in their report. I believe they did theirs in February. And it's vastly different. And they talk about the methodology was very similar, and they show all the findings. They look at all of these different companies. They had a 500 milligram dose of metformin from a lot of the companies. Then they looked at a few thousand ones. So they looked at a huge cross section of all these different companies that that make the metformin, and they looked at them very closely, and they found this one had 182. Remember, the normal was like 96 or whatever it was. 182, that's double. 320, that's almost quadruple. 450, 395, 283, 282, 235, 529, 254, 206, and on and on and on it goes. And you look at all these batches and you realize the FDA somehow, some way missed it. Somehow, some way didn't realize that this was not just one company doing this, but a multiplicity of companies doing this. So kudos to Valisure. David Light is the CEO. Kari Kusera is the Chief Scientific Officer, and Quinn Wu is the Director of Mass Spectrometry at Valisure. So kudos to them for putting this petition out there. What do you guys think? You know, when a government agency puts something out there, generally people tend to trust it. Although I wonder how much of that's changed because nobody trusts the government anymore about anything. The USDA has been an abysmal failure at helping us with nutritional advice. The FDA is notorious for giving GRAS certification, generally recognized as safe for various things, ingredients, food products, that kind of thing. Do we trust the FDA? Do we think that they're telling us the truth? That they did this wide cross-section and they found a whole lot of nothing, and then Valisure comes along and they do their own version of the exact same test and they find a vastly different result? What do you think's going on here? Do you think Valisure lied? Do you think the FDA lied? It's hard for people to know who to believe. And the problem is, in the meantime, there's tens of millions of people taking metformin. How do you know you've got one of the batches that's clear, that's not detectable of this NDMA? How do you know you're not having the one that's 16 times higher than the acceptable rate? And of course, you take this drug on a daily basis. Sometimes people take twice a day. So you're flooding your body with this drug, which could have these suspect ingredients in them. What do you do as a type 2 diabetic, as an insulin-resistant person who's taking this medication? It's something that I think needs to be brought to the forefront. We need a full investigation independent of the FDA. I think, Valisure, I'm not sure what Valisure's interest would be in this other than the public interest, because they're an online pharmacy. So they stand to lose business because people won't be buying metformin anymore. So I don't know what their motivation would be other than a public service. The FDA, I'm trying to figure out what their motivation would be for not reporting this, other than ties to the pharmaceutical companies. What ties would they have? Maybe there's people at the FDA that used to work for these pharmaceutical companies, and this is a way to protect them. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here what the motivation would be for why there would be such a disparity of results between what the FDA found and what Valisure found. So I definitely want to see what you guys have to say. So thanks for being here today on Jimmy Rants. We're going to go to Instagram Live here first, then we'll come to Facebook Live if we have time. Welcome in, you guys. What's up? Thanks for being here on this Sunday with a very important story. Mama Three Chick says, I'm so glad my mom was able to get off of metformin a couple of years ago. She added in fresh turmeric daily. So yeah, turmeric is a very natural inflammation lowering ingredient. So good for her taking something that's anti-inflammatory, which will lower blood sugar and insulin levels. So that's awesome. Beth is jaded. She says FDA stands for Doctors Advocates. Or follow drug advice. I love it. You're so, oh, she's not done. Follows dumbed down advocates. Beth, you're always good for a good laugh. Thank you for that. On KOE says STD of care for type 2 was changed a few years ago because treatment below 7.0 A1C didn't have a health benefit. Interesting. So the standard of care was changed because treatment below 7.0 didn't have a health benefit. Anyway, interesting. That's fascinating. Debbie says, I am a type 2 paleo diabetic now. Keto has kept me off of diabetes drugs. That's awesome, Debbie. Keep that up. Poor ketovore, never trusted taking any meds. Seems like once they get you started, it only leads to more and more. Yeah, that's the problem. Not only do you not come off of the one they give you to begin with, but then the whole idea of polypharmacy comes into play, where you're on a medication and you take that medication literally for the rest of your life. There's literally never a coming off the highway, so to speak, once you get on one of these meds, which when you become enlightened and you realize there are other factors at play that could help you come off of medication, it makes you wonder, why don't doctors start talking about some of those ways that you can come off of that med? I would love it if a doctor said, you know what, I'm going to put you on metformin for 6 months. I'd like to keep you on it for 6 months. Hopefully you're seeing some benefit, but in the meantime, here's a lifestyle modification in addition to taking the metformin, and I want to monitor you while we're doing this, that I think could add an added benefit to the drug. No doctor ever does that unless they're woke, basically. Most of them just say, take this medication. They don't care about your diet. They don't care about your exercise. They don't care about anything except putting you on that drug. And of course, there is a cozy relationship between doctors and pharmaceutical companies, where doctors get all kinds of paid vacations and beautiful luxurious trips to conferences that are in like exotic places. So keep that in mind when you see the enthusiasm of your doctor talking about some drug for you to take. Lisa says, we should know by now that it's all business and they simply can't be trusted. I hate to be jaded, but you're right. Carnivore Heals says, switch over to berberine. So berberine is a natural supplement that does mimic the effects of metformin, and it helps people with insulin resistance. I actually have one in my company called Keto Living. Go to ketoliving.com. We have a product called Berberine Plus. So it's got berberine and banana leaf and some other kind of insulin and blood sugar modulating characteristics to it. It also, if you're taking a statin medication, mimics some of the effects of a statin drug as well. So berberine, thank you Carnivore Heals, is a great alternative to metformin. Lisa says, lying is not punished. Scientists get away with killing people all the time. Nothing comes of it. And here in South Africa, it just gets covered up. Yeah, here in America, it does too. Yeah, somebody else mentioned berberine. Thank you, Lisa. She said it improves glucose disposal, among other things. Exactly. On KEOE, I got off niaspan and metformin in 2015 after going cold turkey keto, getting a new baseline. I believe the niaspan and Lipitor was raising my blood glucose. Yeah, Lipitor is a cholesterol-lowering medication, and one of its known side effects is, yeah, it makes you more insulin resistant. It actually has an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. I think like 20% of the people who take Lipitor or other statin drugs actually develop type 2 diabetes as a direct result of just taking that drug. So, all right, Instagram Live, those were some great comments and questions. Let's look over on Facebook. And again, I can't see my other Facebook page, so sorry I can't talk to you guys. I do look at your comments after we're done, but let's see what my Facebook page over here has to say. Thank you for being here, you guys. Hello, hello. I'm a nationally board certified pharmacist technician, says Maria. So many patients of mine get prescribed metformin, but they complain and complain about how they just don't like how it makes them feel. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. And I'd love to get your insights, Maria, on why they get these feels that aren't so great. Very rarely do they even finish the supply because it's so bad. Listen to your body, people. Try something else. If you have a feeling, talk to your doctor. I will tell you, one of the biggest complaints people have about metformin is gastric distress. So if you've ever eaten maltitol or some other sugar alcohol that gives you like gas that explodes in your stomach, that's about what metformin does, from what I understand of people telling me. And it's bad. They tried adding some bufferers to it, which helped a little bit, but sometimes it just delayed the explosion in the stomach. So yeah, so it depends on your metabolism, I suppose, how it reacts in your body. But yeah, that's a very commonly known side effect of taking metformin. Brenda said, I took the maximum dose of metformin for years, the little effers. Brenda, I love you. You are my spirit animal, so thank you for your comment. Christy says, a little every single day adds up. People are prescribed medications with all these ingredients in them for daily use, and the effects are cumulative. Thank you for that. So yeah, this one version of metformin that had 16 times the level of NDMA, that's 16 times every single day, weeks, months, years. And you're right, the cumulative effects. The body is recognizing this as a dangerous substance in their body. And it's going to create antibodies to try to deal with it. It's going to try to clear it out of your body, but at some point, that's constantly in your bloodstream. It's going to have an ill effect, and God forbid you develop cancer. And of course, we never go back and look at medications' roles in cancer. We always try to look at genetics, lifestyle, maybe a little bit of diet, but not usually. Usually they look at genetics and lifestyle. Did you smoke? Did you drink alcohol? Did you have this? Did you have that? That kind of thing. Norma says, I use berberine. Yep. So somebody else mentioned berberine, you guys. No ill effects and regulates my blood sugar. Yeah, I took berberine for a little while as well, and it helps a lot. Brenda says, take the statin or you'll have a heart attack and die, effers. They do use those mind games, Brenda. They try to convince us that if we don't take this med, we're going to drop dead of a heart attack tomorrow. I don't like the motivation of fear, because the motivation of fear makes people do stupid stuff. How about we tell you, you know what? I know ketogenic will control your blood sugar and insulin levels quite fine. So if you decide not to do that, take metformin and eat your crappy diet. I've actually had a few of the keto doctors I've interviewed on the Live and Live Vita Low Carb show. And I remember one specific, Dr. Jeffrey Gerber, who's behind the Low Carb Denver event. He told me one time, and I asked him, is there anybody that needs to take a statin medication? He said, one group of people do I prescribe a statin. And that one group are the people who refuse to change their diet. So if you refuse to change your diet, go on the statin because at least it will give you a fighting chance. Everybody else, you don't need it. So pick your poison. It's kind of like that story I did the other day about half the population finds every diet undesirable. Half the population, which means they're not ready. So if you're not ready and you think the answer to your health woes is in a pill, well, good luck, because you're not going to last long. Those of us who have been enlightened, we know, we've had our eyes open, we realize the profundity that is changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, getting good sleep, making sure you're dealing with the stress and things in your life. All of those things cumulatively make you optimally healthy. Not a drug. No amount of metformin, Lipitor, or any drug that you could possibly take will nearly get you as healthy as making a change in your diet and lifestyle. All day, every day, as they say. All lying wonders in the last days. I don't trust them. Sure, not the FDA, says Janet. Yes. You don't want to think they're lying to us, but it's almost at this point, they're just telling us they're lying to us. If you open your eyes, you can see they are. And the way you can tell they're lying to us is their lips are moving. Thank you for sharing this, says Jessica. You're welcome, Jessica. Elisa says, I'm thankful to learn about berberine. My doctor recommended I use metformin, even though I've been keto for 3 years. My A1C 4.7. You have an A1C of 4.7, which, by the way, that's incredible. Anything under 5.5 is great. Under 5 is really optimal. I think the last time I ran mine, it was like 4.9. So 4.7, and he still wanted you on metformin. I wonder why. Why did he want to put you on metformin with an A1C of 4.7? Do you still have weight on your body? Is that what it is? Because sometimes they think it helps with that. Did you have higher insulin levels? I'd be curious to know if you know why he was recommending this drug. He thinks it's a wonder drug, has my husband on it. He is pre-diabetic and low carb. And so, yeah, he might be getting a big kickback from that pharmaceutical company to promote metformin. So just keep that in mind. I, again, hate to be jaded, but it's true. All right, let's see if we got any more comments here. Nope. Okay. So, guys, that is the scoop. Please spread this message far and wide for people that are taking type 2 diabetes medications. And it's not just type 2 diabetes, but that's the majority of people that have type 2 diabetes take this drug. You need to let them know about this. Metformin, possible high amounts of NDMA, which is a known or a possible carcinogen that we're worried about and concerned about. And people need to know what they're getting themselves into if they're taking these drugs. Berkeley says, we'll have to watch again. Got a call right before you started saying something about Armour. Yeah, Armour changed their formulation a few years ago is what I said, Berkeley, where people were taking it and getting great benefit, and then suddenly they were taking the same medication, but they had changed the formula to make it cheaper for more profitability, and it wasn't working as well. All right, so that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. I hope this was useful information. Please share it far and wide. JimmyRants.com is my website for all the past videos. You can also access them all on YouTube. Please embed these all over social media. Share the love, share the wealth, you guys, because I'm trying to give you good information that you can share with other people. So we're going to sign off here, you guys. And until next time, we'll see you then.